Well, I've always been asked questions and I've been happy to answer them. On a spiritual level, I've always tried to answer with help and guidance from those in the higher realms, rather than relying on the little knowledge that I have by comparison. And one of the things that has come up time and time again over the last 11 years now is the difference that repealing the Fraudulent Mediums Act of 1951 had on spiritualism and its practitioners. And as I predicted back then, and you could call that fortune telling if you like, but it was actually an educated guess that so much fortune telling is based on, by the way, but we'll talk about that another time. Spiritualism shot itself in the foot because all the big organisations were telling their followers that this was a good idea to have the repeal of the Fraudulent Mediums Act, and that it would all be covered by a new kind of Trades Descriptions Act. So spiritualist practices were actually going to be covered by this new trades descriptions, thus in one foul swoop making spiritualism's practitioners traders and looking on spiritualist practices as an industry. And for the many hundreds of thousands of us in the UK, millions in America, this is not just an insult. It was totally ignoring our religious belief, our religious practices, and the basic one of which is mediumship, communicating with the spirits of those who have gone before to prove that they have survived physical death and that they, as spirit and spirit individuals and spirit consciousnesses individuals, live on, albeit in a finer dimension of life than this. And the question of whether people accept money or gifts for the time they spend with inquirers, with recipients, whether it's in personal sittings or on a public platform serving churches, that should not be in any way deemed to be a trade or profession in that sense, or an industry, any more than practitioners of the various orthodox and established churches, temples and so on would be thought to be traders just because they receive money for their services. If we go back to even the Middle Ages, monasteries and convents, for instance, relied on those followers of their religion to request them to pray for them, to pray for healing or spiritual matters, for which they would be given donations of food or money. In other words, they would be enabled to live their lives materially because of their spiritual gifts and the spiritual blessings that they were able to offer those with perhaps less time to devote to prayer than they had. So from May 2008, the fact that genuine mediums had no umbrella protection and no acknowledgement, because after all, if you have fraudulent mediums, you see, it presupposes there are genuine mediums, which of course there are, and without that there was nothing. However, in the new climate, there is no need, as we know, to worry about such things as prosecution for fraud because you are not a good medium. You may not be a good medium, but as long as you are a medium, in other words, that you can prove to somebody's satisfaction that you have communicated with the world unseen on their behalf, that and there of course we have the dogs communicating with the seen world in the background there. As long as you can give satisfactory evidence of survival to somebody who has requested it, there is no problem there whatsoever. And that is whether it's free, whether they give you something for that, or whether you decide that there is a fee to be paid, some transaction between you. However, this is still a religious practice. That's what I say. And because of that, we don't have to have insurance. Now, a pretty penny has been made by many organisations that call themselves Spiritualist by selling insurance to their members, telling them that they require this if they want to practice mediumship or healing. Now, the fact is that both of those attributes fall within religious spiritualism as it's practiced, and just as the clergy of the various established Orthodox churches and other religions practice their faith, and so do we, they are as likely as we are to be prosecuted for it. And the practicalities of it are that back in 2008, I was campaigning. I sent letters to the Archbishop of Canterbury, to Her Majesty the Queen, to His Royal Highness Prince Charles, and to the Department of Business Regulatory Reform that was acceding to the EU directive that said that we shouldn't worry about all our multitude of small trading laws and bills, that we can repeal a great swathe of those and replace it with this new trading standards that would protect everybody. And whoever it was decided that the Fraudulent Mediums Act was repealable, and then it would be covered by a Trades Description Act, which was absolutely criminal in itself. And the other thing was, would you believe that major spiritualist organisations were stupid enough, misguided enough to think that that was a good thing? And I said at the time that if it was repealed, there would be a proliferation of what was then a growing concern of psychic phone lines and various other things going on. And a lot of people would make a lot of money. And of course, some of the people that have made a lot of money are those very organisations by selling insurance. Because to tell mediums and healers and all the practitioners of the various disciplines within that they need insurance to cover themselves against prosecution is nonsense. Because the law of this land says that if you con somebody, if you deceive somebody in law, they have redress and they can go to law and you will be arrested if you relieve people of money doing something that you say you can do that you can't do. So therefore, operating as a religious practice, there is no need to be insured, and you can be taken to court if you do something wrong in this country. Any amount of insurance papers won't save you if you've done something wrong. If you haven't, then there's no problem. And so you see, if you are a medium, you're not doing it for entertainment purposes only, which is this was advised that this should be said. And you can still see the remnants of that. People still cover themselves with that. Why would they need to do that if they're genuine? Why would they need to say that something is an experiment and they can't guarantee results? Well, that's we always have said right from the beginning that if people come for a sitting, we may get a connection. If we don't get a connection, we can say, sorry, we haven't got a connection. And that's it. But if you do have a connection and it's satisfactory for the recipient, and as I said before, whether it's on a public platform or in a private sitting, what's the problem? You certainly don't need to set out insurance papers. You do, of course, need ordinary third-party liability if you're going to hold a session in a hall, or if you're going to have people in your home. God forbid they might trip over and hurt themselves if they're a stranger. But the fact is this, that just as a member of any ministry, you are entitled to offer tea and sympathy to anybody who comes and knocks on your door. And you don't need insurance for that. So I think, we need to look at who we are as spiritualists, what spiritualism actually means, and it certainly has nothing to do with any kind of Trade Descriptions Act. And I'm not saying this so that everybody should be plunged into panic and think, oh, if I don't have insurance, what then? You don't need insurance, you really don't. And of course, there are going to be a lot of people out there who say that I'm saying the wrong thing. I wonder why that is. I wonder if they sell insurance, and I wonder if they get a commission from that, from the insurance companies. Well, that's just something to think about, isn't it? So anyway, I hope it has given you some food for thought. I hope that if you are a medium, if you are a healer, that you know exactly how good you are, how genuine you are, and as a genuine person, as a genuine practitioner, and under the umbrella of spiritualism, as a religious movement, a way of life, knowing that we are all spirit, we do the work of the Great Spirit, call that what you wish, that we have contact and sweet communion with that other side of life, the higher realms, the realms of light. You don't have to worry at all. So there. That's the end of my little chat for today. If you have any questions, do message me either publicly on my YouTube channel, Lyn Gibb-de, or of course I'm on Facebook as well, and I will happily answer questions.